Good afternoon and welcome to this CHRO power panel session. The session is about rethinking. While I was coming in, I noticed, we were talking about lunch being there. So when you are thinking about lunch, we'll try and make you rethink more about certain other aspects that we want to focus on. So the focus here, today is to think through in what ways learning experiences have to be rethought to appeal more for a holistic employee experience. I came across a very nice quote, today, which says that learning is a beautiful thing because nobody can take it away from you. I'm sure all of us, we know that when you look at the compensation and benefits or salary slips, there is hardly any element, which is there, which is as permanent as learning. So that's something which remains with people forever. So it's extremely important. I'm a non-HR guy. Okay, my own observation when I interact with people, I see a lot of happy employees. When they are happy with the organization, they will make statements like, we love this place because we are learning a lot. This is, this comes out very naturally. Even former employees, have been happy with the organization. They would talk about, we loved that supervisor, we loved that organization because we learned a lot, at that particular place. I've also seen in old economy resumes, not anymore, this whole term about rich learning experience, rich experiences. So people will say, I have 10 years of rich experience in investment banking. You'll also have a guy saying, I have 15 days of rich experience interning in a sales department. And I'm sure neither the banker nor the intern is talking about the dollars that they earned in their pocket when they're talking about their rich experience. It's largely about that they want to convince you about their capabilities, and the time there, the rich time that they spent was nothing but indicating working and learning which they spent in that particular tenure. So no doubt learning experience are an integral part of the overall employee experience, but the topic is rethinking, and I'm just wondering what has really driven this kind of rethinking on this extremely crucial area. I also learned from someone that there are more than $400 billion which are spent every year on corporate learning. If all the dollars are already being spent, then why a rethink is required? So I've been talking to my HR colleagues before this discussion. I think there are 3 or 4 things which have come out in a big way. The first one I also related with when I saw this news recently. How many of you know what happened to the population count on 15th November? Any? Fantastic. All of us, we know that. But in India, we're not too much worried about billions of people. Was there something else which was there, which people noticed in the billion that we've added? I think. So of course, we added more people to the world than China, so that's interesting. But I think the 2 things from an HR angle which I noticed was the median age has increased, from 27 years to 30 years. So if you have been struggling with multi-generational workforce, your problems are only going to become bigger. I'm a Gen X person. We have lived through millennials mocking us, making fun of us, but now when I see Gen Z, there is this huge satisfaction, I think a revenge satisfaction, when you see them, mock the millennials. So I think that's a huge area, a big change. I think learning experiences are needed in a different way. That is doing it. Second is this, I think everyone is talking about hybrid work or remote working environment. How does that really, making us rethink of the learning experiences? Have you heard of proximity bias? I think proximity bias is an older term. Came in, earlier than, when most people started to use hybrid learning. It was more of supervisors having visibility concerns. That means anyone who is not in close proximity, we doubt whether the person is as productive or not. Is there a proximity bias also creeping in when we think of learning solutions? There is also this, what do we do when people are not in the office? Let's take e-learning. I'm a huge proponent of digital learning myself, but there's also this whole digital exhaustion. I've seen people, with those eyes drooping in, working, and then again we give them a huge amount of learning. Likewise, there are other catalysts like short shelf life of skills. You also have this huge advent of technologies happening. I was happy when people said in your mobile you have all your learning. Aren't you seeing now they are telling us to even put those mobiles or computers on our faces, and in the name of metaverse. So there is so much which is happening, and something is good, okay, but almost good or bad is forcing this kind of a rethink. And I think we have just the amazing panel. I've been interacting with them for quite some time, before this particular interaction. These are the people who, one, recognize, these forces of change, and they have also worked within their organization addressing some of those catalysts, which are needed to address these forces of change. So without further ado, I think I'll start off my first question, Dr. Joshi, since I'm from a university and you've been a former professor, now you are a CHRO. My first question to you, a little bias, proximity bias that I have, right? So in your own way, how do you see number one, learning experiences being fundamental to being a good employer? Okay, because there's this whole cynical approach to say what matters is money. Okay, how does it really matter to people whether you give learning experiences or not? Okay, and second, to convince the employees that this is important and it's part of the employer value proposition. How are some of the ways in Hexaware, let's say, that you are seeing this this whole aspect panning out?
Thank you for the opportunity. This was several years back, and before I came to Hexaware as a CHRO, I worked with a consulting firm called Great Place to Work. And my job there for 5 years was to work with leaders and managers across almost 4 dozen companies that I had opportunities to work with, to help them become better workplaces. And consistently, and I'm talking about companies which are really very large in different sectors, and every time we had a proposition saying, how do we become a better workplace? One thing that came on the top of the charts, and I'm talking about companies of all sizes, all kinds, all sectors, was how do we create an environment where learning is the fundamental aspect of the workplace culture. So learning went beyond just developing skills in these companies. When they were thinking about learning, they were thinking about how do we make it a part of the culture. In my experience, both as a consultant, academician, as well as a corporate executive now, I think people come to workplace for 4 things. Okay? One, a sense of hope. Does this company give me hope? While there are so many things that are hopeless around in the environment that I can't do much about, when I walk into a workplace, do I feel hopeful? Second is trust. Can I be trusted, and can I trust these people? Third is a sense of competence. Can I be successful here? And fourth is a sense of worth. Am I valuable here? Now, if you look at all these 4 in my thought process, look at all these 4 needs in any organization at any level and cross-cultural, you will notice that one common thread which can help us build hope, which can help us build trust, which can help people feel that sense of competence and sense of worth is opportunities to learn. So I truly believe that learning and environment and processes and policies and programs around learning are absolutely fundamental to being a good employer. Okay? Because most people believe genuinely that learning is equal to growth. And that's really what they look for when they come into the organization. So this is really how I look at the significance of learning from being a great employer.
Sure. So you said 4 innate needs.
Hope,
and
trust.
the big thing is learning being an enabler for that.
Absolutely.
Building that
absolutely. Out. These are not about what else I get from the company. Of course, I want many things from the company, but learning is one thing that helps me satisfy all these 4 innate needs.
Interesting. Okay. Now I'll take the same question. Okay. This is the only time I'll repeat a question, but I'm doing it more with a very different objective. We have Atirek here. He's a specialist in talent acquisition. He wears a global hat. Last time I was talking to him, I felt the way he was trying to talk about his company, I felt like leaving mine and joining his. And till I learned that there are no vacancies for aging CEOs from universities in Sutherland. So now, practically, since you see talent acquisition at all levels, firsthand, where do you see, this whole aspect of learning? Is it really being valued, by people when you talk about learning opportunities? And if it is or if it is not, how do we make it part of the employee value proposition, which can be easily communicated?
I think it's never easy to go next to a CHR and try to create an impact about employee value proposition. But let me try. Okay, I think everything you said, we agree. If we ever derive a heat map for what is very important for an employee or for a candidate who's scouting for a new job, I think we put a heat map for what is the most important, what is important and not so important. I'm pretty sure that being valued by your manager and being valued by your organization is going to be the most prominent. There is a craving that everybody has. Plus, you will see other aspects like quality of work, the relevance of work. And then when you see an interface of the most important and important, that's where I'm sure we will find the learning opportunities, career advancement, and monetary benefits. So yes, I get opportunity to interact with candidates, but we have seen a trend and we have also seen a difference, which is slightly different from what used to happen 5 years, 10 years ago. There is an affinity towards learning opportunity. There is. And candidates are very specific to know what are my development goals, what are my career trajectories. Now, it gets even more interesting because on one side, you have candidates who are upfront asking very strong career trajectories, career pathing, learning and development opportunities. And on the other side, you have employers who are trying to build more and buy less. Today, you would have seen on LinkedIn posts, right? Retention is your new recruitment, right? Internal talent first, build more, buy less. And I think this build more is where we are emphasizing a lot on internal talent development, which puts a lot of pressure back on L&D. You spoke about 40 billion.
Yes.
Yeah. So we know where it's going, because if given an opportunity today, we would like to put our internal talent first before we go and start looking for somebody who's not from the organization. It's just not easy because there's too much of skill gap that we face, and we think that with a very strong predictive analysis about what skill we might be looking forward to, how much we want to invest in building our internal talent. But in Sutherland, we run a university. We call it as Academy of Excellence, something that we were talking about. Okay, so we are looking at aspirational learning, and then we are also doing recommendation, which is based on generations of data clubbed with a lot of smart artificial intelligence and machine learning. And we believe that learning at workplace keeps the workforce advancing in a good way. They keep them motivated, they keep them engaged, and needless to say that learning opportunity and learning environment keeps an individual at the forefront of their career and engagement. So yes, I again agree that employee value proposition, a sizable amount of that employee value proposition comes around learning and development, and we definitely take it seriously.
That's great. I think the three major things, which I picked up. Okay, number one, the trend is changing. It is not just following the Lakshmi, but Saraswati is closely competing now. I also heard that one of the big reason is the extreme focus on career development among the new people who are joining in. And then of course, the organization building an ecosystem which is meeting that aspiration. Unless that is met, the employee value proposition is not complete. So this is, that's interesting. And Liz, I'll come to you. If these two gentlemen have said, learning is so fundamental, this is what is really need of the hour is, then why is, I deal with HR, and most of the time, you'll see the L&D, which is charged with the entire accountability of learning. Do you think it should be like that? Should there be more stakeholders in an organizations? Because if it is so vital, I'm sure more stakeholders should be involved. And if they should be, are there some good ideas, maybe at TCS that you have seen of drawing in more stakeholders?
Okay, thanks, Rajiv. That's a great question. But before I start, I want to thank ET for organizing this learning forum. We are all here today because, we want to share our experiences, and all of you want to learn, and we want to learn from one another. So it really resonates with the theme. Going back to your question, Rajiv, learning is a responsibility for everyone in the organization. It can be, a responsibility of talent development within the overall HR organization, but then it has to be really operationalized by everybody coming to the party. Let me ask a question. What if talent development is one of the top priorities of your company? What if talent or learning and sharing is a core value? And what if lifelong learning is a culture that you want to live every day? Then you really believe that, learning is so important. Everybody needs to own it up, and all stakeholders have to come to play to make it a reality in the organization. At TCS, that's how talent development is positioned. We believe it's both a HR function and a business function. Investing in people has always been a top priority. And I heard you say, Atrik, that it's changed, but I think it's always been a top priority for us. When we used to go to campus many, many years ago, people used to want to join us because of the investment we make in learning, right? And it has helped us differentiate ourselves as a top employer. It has helped us to attract, acquire, and retain the best talent in a world which is so competitive, especially when you're looking for niche skills and at a price point which makes sense. So there is a business reason also why talent development has to be focused by everyone. And if I really want to link talent development to this theme of experience and engagement, I believe it falls within the overall scope of holistic workforce engagement, which has to run as a HR priority with all arms of HR coming together at every stage of the employee's life cycle in the organization. So it used to be crafting employee experiences. It moved to, well-being and care for employees during lockdown. And now it is like holistic engagement with purpose. So, in TCS, really, talent development drives certain strategic priorities. One is fueling growth. The second one is linking learning with careers, because it must make sense to those innate needs of employees on the ground. And the third one is enhancing our employer brand. And therefore, it is truly a partnership, working with business, understanding the capabilities, delivering the best-in-class learning, building those capabilities, skills, certification needs that can fuel growth. More than 4,500 to 5,000 business SMEs are acknowledged every year through a function which we call as Golden Guru Gala because of their contribution to learning. They're involved in every stage, from the themes that have to be covered, involvement in the design, coming in as faculty, facilitators, coaches, and so forth. Again, from an associate point of view and, bringing it all together when we say engagement and experience, that whole concept of linking learning to careers is extremely important. So how does HR encourage people to get into learning journeys which are specifically designed for purpose, right? How does talent development and, make the learning available and then make it gamified, rewarding as people complete milestones, reward them? How does total rewards come in and, recognize the high talent and help them to get the rewards, benchmark their compensation and so forth. And the entire business realize the potential, realize the investment made in learning for the associate and for the business. So that's why I believe that, if you drive it with purpose, it's a responsibility of everybody.
Beautiful. I'm just tempted to also add there. First you said for business to play a role, okay, it has to see the rationale of learning linked with it. And then later on you said the learning has to be linked with career. So these beautiful links have to get established, but easier said than done. To position, I remember, there was a time we used to commission surveys, and we used to come out with a report where this question was about how far business thinks the L&D, okay, is aligned with the strategy. Every year I would see that survey and I was given the task of going in front of people and presenting it. I said, I'll not present this question because we're always so poor. It almost looks like that this is one problem we want to keep with ourselves. We love it. And so I think kudos to organizations, okay, who are able to link business with learning. And then of course, to ensure that the employees love it, linking it to the careers. If we can just figure out better ways of doing that, I think that's where the final answers would be. Okay, so Pradeep, last but not the least in this round that I have, you have a non-proximity bias that I have, because when I was putting together questions, this was one of my favorite questions. So this is something, again, as I said, I am not from HR, okay, but as a professional, I am also on LinkedIn, and I see that these days people are very frequently displaying their certificates and learning achievements. Have you seen that? So this is becoming very prevalent. I was just wondering, are certificates, competing with selfies and travel photos in social media? Because the amount of pride people have, displaying that, just got me thinking, Pradeepto, that if that's the audience, with the HR is trying to, attract and create greater affinity with, and they feel so much of pride, is there any way that the HR, okay, could leverage this pride and engineer, some of these learning experiences in a manner that they add to that pride?
Absolutely. I think just taking cue from everyone that has spoken already, I think learning is a pivotal element in about all organizations, and therefore accolades around learning is a key component of people's desire, aspiration, and what they are proud of. So therefore, having certificates coming up on LinkedIn or Facebook or wherever is a good thing. It sort of tells us that the individual has taken the effort to participate in a program that helps him or her. And then is also a good thing because it also, from an organization standpoint, the organization has provided the opportunity for the individual to take that journey. I think at eMIDS, and I'm sure everywhere else, you guys have learning programs or learning experience platforms that allows you to earn badges, earn certificates, signed certificates, and they are easily portable to social media. And I think that sort of gives a sense of pride, gives a sense of accomplishment to the folks who are going through it. But I think the key thing, there are two key things that I would like to sort of highlight, again, based on the conversation we are having. While it is L&D and HR who should be responsible, business should work together, ultimately the learner has to be responsible for learning. You can't push learning. Learning has to be pulled. It has to come from within. You have to aspire to learn a new thing. And therefore the learner is sort of central to the learning. And if putting up certificates on the media, on social media, helps the learner, so be it, right? And the second is what Liz said, is how do you sort of connect learning to work, to learning to career, to learning to doing something? And I think we need to see more of that coming out on social media, that I did a Java certification and that allowed me to move from a developer to a designer. I did a UI UX stuff and that helped me to become a front-end developer or a full-stack programmer. I think it's important to use or leverage learning as a means to achieve a higher purpose, higher goal, higher aspiration in life. And I think if you can do that within our organizational ecosystem and within the social ecosystem, I think we have covered quite a bit.
You've said something very beautiful. I think right from our childhood, we know earning certificates give us some innate satisfaction. People go and sometimes just go and attend some competition just to get a participation certificate. But I think the key thing what you said is not just make badges available or certificates available, but link that, okay, very clearly with career outcomes. It's not just learning outcomes or earning a certificate, but career outcomes, which just takes the pride element in not just a piece of paper, but pride element in ability to do something, better before doing that particular learning.
Two things, Rajiv. One, I thought I said multiple things that are beautiful, not only one.
Yes.
You just touched upon.
Okay.
Anyway,
My retention, right?
yeah, the bias really. Playing out.
Yeah.
And it's not only career outcomes. I think it's life outcomes. A lot of us think about learning that you get into a class or do a program online and that's learning. I mean, as Liz says, sitting here and sort of participating either that side or this side is a learning experience. I remember 7-8 years ago, first time I got an opportunity to attend a board meeting, and I was a little better than the guy who was serving tea, coffee. I was just a fly on the wall. But the amount of learning that I could gather in that 4-5 hours in that environment was phenomenal. Think about the small little boy that sits on Avenue Road, when his father and his uncle selling some stuff in a shop, right? By the way, folks who are not from Bangalore who may not relate to Avenue Road, but any road anywhere where there is a small little shop running, there's a kid sitting there. He's learning through osmosis, right? So learning is not necessarily structural. Learning need not necessarily be an activity. It should be a part of what you do, and that's what we try and put together in our organizations. Learning should come in the flow of work. Learning should come in the flow of being.
Absolutely got it.
So, Rajiv, if you permit me, I want to share with the audience one very interesting experience that I had. And this was part of my consulting career. We were working with this company, and one of the objectives that they had set from a cultural perspective was how do we get people to take accountability for their own learning, right? Typical challenges are to push learning, create programs and then get nominations. So one of the managers of a very large unit in that company, it was an IT services company, a captive, he said, I'm going to do something differently. So what did he do? You walk into their workplace and you will see chart papers all around put up. Okay. Each chart paper has the name of the team member. I think he had some 22, 23 team members. And in this case, of course, pre-COVID era, they were all sitting together in one cubicle space in the office, all chart papers put up. Okay. Earlier, when I went there, I thought these were something to do connected with the product roadmap or some technical stuff. I looked at it closely. Each of those chart papers had the name, and after the name was written my Sensex. Okay. I said, wow, that's interesting. Why would they put up something around Sensex? Then I saw it was written career Sensex. Okay. So imagine a 2x2. Okay. X-axis is the time. Okay. And this time they had marked as fortnightly. And on the y-axis was growth. Okay. Literally speaking, and I'm not exaggerating here, every person was marking his or her movement on that graph. And there was a small note written whenever the graph was moving up. On that point was written, took up an additional project. Then for somebody it was flat, which means that person believes nothing happened in last fortnight that he or she can claim to be a learning experience. Then somebody has put it up again after fortnight and marked on the point saying, helped create a presentation for the client. So everything that they were doing as they were going along on that time axis, they were visualizing how it's adding to their own growth and progress. After 4 months, when of course there was a formal process, I'll not go into that, when we actually checked back with the team, this team had the highest score on learnability and learning because they truly believed that what they were doing as a part of their day-to-day work routine was enabling their growth. So what did this manager do? And my answer to that would be, he designed that experience to be a learning experience, and by looking at it visually, he was actually creating a culture of accountability for learning. I love that idea called Career Sense X.
Beautiful. Right, Atrika, I come back to you. So I think again we are seeing a lot of reports, talking about future skills and short life span of skills, shelf life. I think they picked it up from FMCG industry. The skills have a short lifespan, and people have to still, cope up with it. We do a lot of interaction with working professionals. I see, while it is good to give gyan on always learning, constantly changing, and agility in picking up new technologies, it's also overwhelming people. People sometimes come and say that, do we have to really keep on changing that fast? Are there certain ways where HR could really help get people in a mindset which is where they're not scared of learning new things if they have to renew themselves? So what are some of those things which you could please highlight, which could be useful?
So, shelf life, yes, it's a daunting story, especially if it's about technology. It's often said that shelf life of technology is like a banana. By the time you procure it, prepare it, and about to eat, it's absolutely obsolete. Now, we mitigate that risk in our organization by talking more about what progressive training can bring to the employees. Now, I like what Liz said or Pradipta said, that training cannot be a one-way street. We cannot be giving you material to read and expect you. The self-motivated training module is always impactful. Now, there are a few things that we have experimented, and again, it's a learning forum, so we're trying to share what we have done and has worked for us in the past. And I'll try to make it in bullet points so that it's easy for us to remember, is that the first thing we do is be very open about the learning modules, broadcast it, okay, ensure that employees have reach to all the forums that we have created. But in a nutshell, number one, we work on a very strong, a very robust workforce strategy, which is basically built on predictive analysis about the skills that we might need and the skill gaps we might encounter. And then we build a program around it. So L&D team in my organization does the glass gazing, and then they engineer curiosity. So they really want to know what is the need of the hour and what is expected from people to pick in the near future. The second part that we really focus on is the flexibility of learning. You can pick up what you really want to learn, but we would also recommend training modules for each of the employees, which is based on generations of data, clubbed with artificial intelligence, machine learning of some of the inputs we got, that what has really worked for somebody in past. It's just an indicator, does not make you to pick that. It's a voluntary choice. We experimented something which is working well for us, that we are very open and flexible for employees to go out and learn from the industry and bring it back to the organization, or bring it back to our internal community. It's a rewarding program, and sometimes it also leads to monetary benefits. And we believe in personalization, because personalization is one aspect which keeps the learners engaged. So we give you what you need. We also ask you what you need. We make it a two-way street, aspirational. And this phase of learning, which is primarily based on experiential learning, gives us the advantage. And to the first question, that yes, today it's on par with certain tangible benefits that we offer to the candidates versus the learning opportunities that we are creating. One very important aspect that we have been able to do is how different is learning in Sutherland versus what you can learn from any of the online forums. We, with the help of our client relationship and the clientele we have, we give you a live environment to go and learn from the expert. So it's like a first-hand scenario created for you to learn a technical skill on the job. So it is called as the on-job training in an environment which we create with the help of our clientele. So I think 3-4 points: having flexibility, give them openness to learn it from the industry, share it with us, reward them, make it a two-way street, personalize it, and a very strong workforce strategy to ensure that we are not only sensing the situation, but we are not reacting to a situation a little later. So being ahead of time when it comes to changing the technology stack or possibly advancing the candidates in the near future, and keep them aware of what might be coming to the organization.
That's a whole lot of things. Thanks. I see time's up. So, but can I get one more question?
You want to take a question from the audience or ask
One
someone?
more here and one there.
I think we can save it for the lunch or one-on-one.
Save it for the lunch?
Perhaps. Yes. We
Okay, I
actually
think the
do have a
appetite is more.
lunch.
Just one more question. Okay,
Okay.
that's to Liz, because TCS is all about scale, right? And when the pandemic happened, the disruption of jobs, things going remote, and then bringing them back, okay, is happening at a very large scale. And your organization would have really done things to ensure not just that work is going hybrid effectively, there's also learning, okay, is also getting addressed in an effective manner. Any 1 or 2 ideas, Liz? Be very helpful.
I'll keep it really short.
Yes.
Rajiv, thanks
Yes.
for that
Yes.
opportunity.
Yeah.
But see, we moved from phygital prior to the pandemic. We had connected classrooms. Some of our programs were delivered through those means. We were able to quickly move to 100% virtual delivery of all our programs, including leadership and behavior. And then now we are coming to a situation where we are saying we will continue a whole lot of learning virtually, but we will also bring some learning back to the classroom, right? So when we moved and when we continue to do a lot in a remote fashion, I think the important things was to focus on the learner experience and also to ensure that the learning objectives were being met. So a lot of innovation, learner-centric design to bring in those, those bite-sized modules, the coaching, the mentoring, the simulations, the role plays, experimenting with yoga and theater as part of the construct on the leadership and behavior side, because it's all about mindset change and it has to be an immersive experience, reflective, transformative, and so forth. But on the technology side, we had a huge advantage. We were already building digital skills at scale. So we used our own internal platform, a frictionless one-click kind of platform, which brought content and lab environments to people to pick up the modern technologies rapidly. Playgrounds where they could code, test, repeat. Our USP was inbuilt validation of the scripts. We had tryouts where people were given challenges, as Atrek said again, that you have to look at how do you solve problems. So encouraging people to do that, and a huge hackathon culture which runs continuously, where especially the young generation wants to showcase their skills and be recognized as high talent and be rewarded for that. And rewarded, when we spoke earlier, meant making it really happen. Everybody taking accountability, their career movements. If they are taking, they've picked up a new technology area, how quickly can they work in that area, and so forth. And this has really been very rewarding. People are around 450,000 people are on that play stack which we have. It is like one hands-on assessment every 6 seconds, 3.5 million plus learning hours. So it's
Don't scare us.
It's a culture and
Yes,
it's really wonderful.
Thank you so much, Liz. I think lots of insights, lots of ideas, and I'm scared of the MC looking at me. Can we have one question or?
No, please.
Okay,
I
thank
see
you.
all these
Thank you so
faces
much.
looking at me.
I
I'm
think
scared of them.
I give up. Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll talk outside. Thank you.